All right, let's get started. Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Advanced Practices for Arcgis Pro, Supporting the Transition from ArcMap to Arcgis Pro. This is part 2 of a two-part webinar series on learning Arcgis Pro. Here are your presenters. My name is Stephanie Boyum and I am a GIS analyst for Northpoint Geographic Solutions out of Duluth, Minnesota. My colleague, Sam Giebner, who is the second presenter for this webinar session, also works for Northpoint Geographic Solutions as a GIS web application developer. On behalf of Sam and myself, we would like to thank everyone for joining us today, and we hope that you will walk away with more knowledge on ArcGIS Pro and will be more comfortable making the switch from ArcMap to ArcGIS Pro. Today's webinar agenda includes 3 main parts: an information discussion with slides, a demo, and a Q&A session. In the first part, we will spend a brief amount of time recapping from our last webinar by giving a brief summary of ArcGIS Pro. We'll also be going through the advantages of ArcGIS Pro over ArcMap, as well as covering a few use cases with ArcGIS Pro. We will then give a demo that includes some more advanced uses of ArcGIS Pro, such as how to create and interact with web layers and web maps in Arcgis Online, as well as using 3D data in your maps. We will also go over how to configure ArcGIS Pro to maximize performance, along with some tips and tricks to help you become familiar with the application. We will then wrap up the webinar with a Q&A session with your questions that were asked throughout the webinar. If time permits, we will also cover some commonly asked questions on ArcGIS Pro. You can ask questions by clicking on the chat button at the top of your browser window within this webinar session. The chat button is a green icon that looks similar to a message bubble. Once you click on this icon, a chat window will open, and in that chat window, just type your question in the chat box at the bottom and press enter. We will receive these questions on our end, and we'll answer them after the demo portion of the webinar. We will try our best to answer everyone's questions in the time we have, but if your question is not answered during the time of the webinar, please feel free to reach out to us. Our contact information will be provided at the end. Okay, let's begin. We will start by asking the simple question, as covered in our previous webinar: what is ArcGIS Pro? ArcGIS Pro is a premier professional desktop GIS application that was developed by Esri to help improve the GIS experience. It's a 64-bit multi-threaded application that allows to load more data into memory, and it is also more robust and allowing for the results to be more accurate. Also, processes that used to hang or run out of memory will now be able to complete successfully. Having this power also does not block application while the tool is running, meaning that you can still work on your project while a tool is running. The 64-bit also allows you to utilize multiple cores of your processor, thus giving you more computing power. ArcGIS Pro is also highly integrated with ArcGIS Online, and we will go over this portion in the demo. With ArcGIS Pro, you can also visualize, edit, and analyze geographic data, and not only 2D, but 3D as well. We will also cover some 3D techniques in the demo portion later on in this webinar. In ArcGIS Pro, there is also now a simple search and query, meaning that several different components have a built-in search bar to help you find what you're looking for. For example, in the table of contents, you now have a search bar embedded at the top so that you can search through all your layers rather than having to go through yourself to try to find what you're looking for. As many of you probably already know, with working with ArcGIS Pro is very similar to ArcMap, but it's simplified and much easier to use. So a question I'll get a lot of the time is, why build something new, and can't we just use ArcMap? Well, yes, of course you can just use ArcMap, but Esri is making the move towards using ArcGIS Pro completely and omitting ArcMap. ArcMap will still be there, but no support or future updates will be provided. So why did Esri build something new in the first place? It was really designed and built from the ground up to fit the needs of the modern GIS professional based on input and feedback from the GIS community. In order to meet these requirements and the feedback that were given by the community, Esri decided to start fresh with a completely new architecture that would allow performance and experience to be of the utmost importance. This is why a new application was needed, and this is why Arcgis Pro exists. So based on the feedback that they received from the GIS community, Esri decided to fuse existing applications that they already had created in the past. They wanted to fuse all the following applications into one to create a much more powerful and user-friendly application. Based on the feedback, they took the mapping capabilities from ArcMap, along with the organization capabilities in Arc Catalog, along with ArcGlobe and ArcScene for their mapping geographic data and 3D capabilities, and City Engine for the creation of 3D cities and buildings. The combination of these three applications into one created Arc Pro, an application where you can utilize and view all three on one screen. This, along with the user-friendly interface, creates a better experience for the GIS users and allows more opportunities for working with 2D and 3D data. Now, we'll take a closer look at some of the advantages of ArcGIS Pro over ArcMap. As some of you may notice, this table was used in our previous webinar, but I did want to revisit this table as these are the most important differences between Pro and ArcMap. For the primary work environment, ArcMap uses map documents or .mxds, and ArcGIS Pro, you will now have project files or .aprx files. These files contain all of your maps, layouts, toolboxes, databases, everything you need in one file. For organization, ArcMap uses Arc Catalog and or your local machine to organize all of your different maps, folders, and geodatabases. Whereas now in ArcGIS Pro, you have one .aprx file to organize everything instead of having multiple folders and or multiple geodatabases for your data. For layouts, ArcMap uses multiple data frames and only one layout, whereas ArcGIS Pro has multiple maps, layouts, tables, tasks, and more in this single project file, thus allowing for you to have multiple layouts and not be limited to only one like in ArcMap. And finally, the user interface. ArcMap utilizes toolbars and menus, which at times may not be the best and may not be as user-friendly. And now in ArcGIS Pro, you have one single contextual ribbon that allows you to view tools in one location without having to open several windows at a time. So now let's take a look at a couple of these more in depth and look at the most notable advantages of ArcGIS Pro. And the first one being what I just mentioned, the easy-to-use user interface. There is also an improved iteration with ArcGIS Online and ArcGIS Enterprise, where you can utilize ArcGIS Online services as well as publish them to ArcGIS Online as well. And the last one I'll touch base on, which some of you may not have heard of, and it may not be as popular when looking at the advantages of ArcGIS Pro, is vector tile caches. So the first one we're going to look at here is the easy-to-use user interface. You now in ArcGIS Pro have this single contextual ribbon, and while not everyone may like this style of interface, it does a great job of reducing the clutter by providing context-sensitive menu bars and tools. You no longer need to open and close toolbars when you want to tweak the properties of a layer. It simply appears when you select a layer in the table of contents and goes away when I select something else. So for example, you could click on a layer that you have in your table of contents, and a new little toolbar will appear up in your ribbon, allowing you to edit the features of that different feature layer that you selected. You also now have Dockable Windows, which really saves screen real estate and prevents you from losing your dialog behind another window. You no longer have to go in and edit a feature's symbology and be 10 windows deep, all on top of one another, on top of your map, having to press OK about 10 times just to get a symbol changed, and having to close out of the window just to view it within your map. You now have your symbology window off to the side and docked, and while you're editing your symbology, you're able to still see your map and see your symbology change as it happens. The next thing we'll look at here is the utilization with ArcGIS Online. ArcGIS Pro is able to connect directly to your ArcGIS Online portal or your portal for ArcGIS if you have that hosted on your own internal infrastructure. You're also able to bring in existing services and web maps within ArcGIS Online, as well as create new services and web maps as well. We'll touch a little bit more on this within the demo portion of the webinar. The last thing we're going to just take a look at here is vector tile caching. And although it may not be the most important advantage or the most one heard of, it is definitely an excellent addition to this application. Originally in ArcMap, you were only able to create raster caches, whereas now in Arcgis Pro, you're able to create not only raster caches, but also vector tile caches as well. These vector tile caches are served through Arcgis Online or Portal, and they take up significantly less size and space. They're also created more quickly compared to raster caches. Whereas raster caches are somewhat measured in, gigabytes of storage and days of processing, vector tile caches are more measured in megabytes and hours now. Because of this, it is usually feasible to go down to much more detailed scales using a vector cache. The other great part of caching with vector tiles is that data is stored separately from symbology. So now you can go in and change the symbology without having to republish the entire cache. So if you notice that maybe a label's too big or a symbol's too small or you need to change the color, you can now go in and open that vector tile cache, make that simple little change, and just save it, and you no longer need to republish the entire cache, which is another great feature of Arcgis Pro. So really, after looking at all of these advantages, I know some of you may still not be convinced. So let's just ask the question and nail down the main points that you need to know when making the switch to Arcgis Pro. So why should I switch? Well, for one thing, the newer, more modern interface makes it easier to navigate, therefore saving you time and money in the long run. Also, everything draws much faster. Being a 64-bit multi-threaded application, this application can draw everything much quicker and reduces lag time when you're working on a project. Another item that hasn't really been touched very much is the new line work. In Arcgis Pro, your lines and the lines within your polygons are much cleaner and crisper and less jagged, thus reducing eye strain, and it makes everything much cleaner, not only in Arcgis Pro itself, but also in your prints and exports as well. You're also able to see things as they happen. When you're updating your symbology, even just changing a color or changing the color ramp that you're working on, you're able to see it as it happens, which is a very beneficial part to your workflow and makes everything much quicker. And finally, to hone in, less is more with Arcgis Pro. While a lot of things can be done using different techniques in ArcMap, it can require creating and maintaining many different layers, and therein lies one of the greatest strengths of Arcgis Pro, that less is more. We're able to quickly create and experiment with different configurations and scales until we find that right perfect combination that makes our maps look amazing. So pair this with an improved user experience in the application, and you'll see a significant time reduction in your workflow process, and also a huge reduction in headaches too. There are obviously other advantages of Arcgis Pro, but the ones we just covered are some of the biggest you will encounter when making the transition from ArcMap to Arcgis Pro. Some of these advantages, along with others, will be covered later on in the demo portion. Now, let's take a look at some use cases where both GIS and non-GIS users have utilized the power of Arcgis Pro. This first case brings us down to Collin County, Texas, where a GIS department created some damage assessment maps after about 9 tornadoes blew through northern Texas in December of 2015, damaging at least 1,000 homes and buildings. As soon as the storm hit, the GIS department went right to work collecting data and making maps to help efforts led by the Texas Emergency Response Team. Through Arcgis Online, they access all of the data collected in the field and information about tornado ratings and paths. Collin County GIS Manager Tim Nolan was able to use Arcgis Pro to produce the maps that illustrated the recovery efforts and displayed the capabilities of GIS and his team. Tim Nolan quotes, "I found Arcgis Pro to be quite intuitive, even though as a manager, I do not use GIS every day. I could envision the maps I wanted to make, and Arcgis Pro made it easier for me to get there." So he was able to use Arcgis Pro to create these maps, and it really saved time for him, and he was able to get these maps out a lot quicker so that they could start their recovery efforts. And these maps were used by several different agencies, including the Homeland Security, the Sheriff's Office, the National Weather Service, and the American Red Cross that helped with disaster recovery. So this is one great example that because of the power of GIS and Arcgis Pro, they were able to assist with the recovery efforts in a timely and helpful way. The next example that we're going to look at is out of North Carolina with the Chesapeake Conservatory team. The Chesapeake Conservatory team shows how they are using ArcPro to better understand and solve watershed issues. They were able to use Arcgis Pro and Arcgis Online to create a 1-meter land cover data set for Chesapeake Bay watershed. They usually were using the National Land Cover data set, but at a 30-meter resolution, it wasn't a high enough resolution for them to be able to identify where certain actions would be most effective, such as planting trees along streams and restoring wetlands. So they turned to Arcgis Pro to create this data set that would cover over 100,000 square miles in 206 counties. With that big of an area, they knew that Arcgis Pro could handle it. They also used distributive image processing that saved them a lot of time as well. Normally in the past, with using ArcMap, this type of data processing would take them over a week. And now with Arcgis Pro, they were able to process 3.8 billion pixels of native imagery in high resolution in under 5 minutes, which allowed them to focus more time on improving data after the fact. So with this new computing power of the 64-bit multi-threaded application, they were able to create this data set in a much quicker and easier workflow. This last example that we're going to take a look at here is a more local example with a local broadband provider in Northeast Minnesota, and also with us at North Point. We were able to have our hands in this project and be able to use Arcgis Pro to assist with a local client. We were able to create a series of maps showing customer status on a monthly basis in different areas using Arcgis Pro as well as some Python scripts. We use Arcgis Pro to visualize the amount of future customers, potential customers, and existing customers so that this local broadband provider could see where their customers currently are and where their customers could be. We also had a custom legend with some dynamic text and used a Python script to update the different values in the legend, which was really helpful and easy to make in Arcgis Pro. The two biggest benefits that we saw with Arcgis Pro were the multiple layouts. Some layouts had 2 different areas, such as a west side of a city and an east side of a city, thus creating 2 different maps. This also allowed us for one project instead of having multiple MXDs for each layout. We ended up with about 16 different layouts, so if we were using ArcMap, we would have had about 16 different MXDs, and now with Arcgis Pro, we were able to keep it down just to one single project file, which made organization a lot easier for us. So we hope that showing these use cases helps you to get a better understanding of how to use Arcgis Pro and what the possibilities are. Now that we've looked at a few use cases and recapped a little bit about Arcgis Pro and its advantages over ArcMap, let's take a look at it closer as we let Sam walk through working with Arcgis Pro and how to use some of its more advanced features. With that said, I will turn it over to Sam for a demo portion of the webinar.
Awesome. Thank you, Steph. All right, moving right along. I apologize, I'm a little under the weather, so if I sound like I have a frog, it's just me. All right, so today we're gonna kind of go into some of those things that Stephanie talked about. But the first thing I'd like to show you is, how I configure Arcgis Pro to kind of maximize performance, but also just to, to maximize, I guess, the usability for me. I guess customize it. And then we'll talk about how Arcgis Pro is integrated with Arcgis Online. Specifically, we'll look at accessing web layers and maps. We'll also talk about creating new web layers, sharing web layers and maps. And then after that, we'll go into 3D data, converting 2D data to 3D data. And then we'll also discuss linking 2D and 3D views. And from there, we're going to talk a little bit about tables and what you can do in Arcgis Pro that you couldn't do in ArcMap previously, some pretty neat things. And then we'll talk a little bit about using Model Builder and Python in Arcgis Pro. So, all right, so let's jump on over here into Arcgis Pro. So the first thing that you'll see is my screen's black, right? That's different. And so one of the neat things about Arcgis Pro is they now have a light theme and a dark theme. So by default, you'll start off with the light theme. But I'm going to go ahead here and I'm going to create a project for our demo here. And so for those of you who don't remember, when you create a project, by default, it's going to create a project folder for you. And in this case, it's the default location is My Documents, ArcGIS, and then Projects. And within that folder, it's going to create our project in addition to a default geodatabase and a toolbox. So all of our things will be set up in that home folder. So I'll go ahead and I'll create that. All right. So as you can see, we don't have any maps yet. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how you would configure to this dark theme here. So if you missed that, go up to Project, and then work your way down to Options. And then within Options, go to General, and click on General, and then scroll on down here to Personalize. And so right now I have it set to dark, and if you wanted to go to the light theme or switch to the dark theme, you'd go here and choose from this drop-down. So I'm going to leave it as dark. So if you were to switch themes, in order for that change to be reflected, you have to restart Arcgis Pro, which not a big deal. So I'm gonna leave it at dark. Which this is really nice, and especially for those of you who you know, maybe dabble in coding a little bit, you'll appreciate a dark theme. Just there's a lot less strain on the eyes. Yeah. So one of the other things I like to do is you can improve your performance by turning off the base map by default. So it's similar to ArcMap, where you open it and there's nothing in there, and you have to place a base map in. You can go ahead and set that to none by, again, in Options, scrolling down here to Map and Scene, and then under Base Map here, selecting None. And so that'll help things render a bit faster initially, if that's a concern. By default, it's set to the default base map of your organization. And so I believe I'm signed into Visual ND, so it'll be the default Visual ND base map. Otherwise, you can select a custom base map, and so that allows you to select from, you know, the different base maps that are available to your user through your organization. So I'm just gonna leave it at default for now. I'm not super worried about performance at this moment. And then one of the things that I find very, very helpful, especially if you're working with really big data sets, again, this will be under the Map and Scene options. If you scroll down here, there's this Add Layer area, and there's a Make Newly Added Layers Visible by Default checkbox. By default, it'll be checked on, so when you add data to your map, it'll appear, it'll visualize. But I like to uncheck it because, you know, if you're working with census block data or like I mentioned before, very, very big data sets, it potentially can bog things down. Even though it is faster, I find that this is very helpful. So those are kind of a couple of my little tricks that I like to do when I'm working with Arcgis Pro. And additionally, you can customize the ribbon. So if you scroll down here to the bottom in our options menu here, you have the ability to customize the ribbon, like it says there. And this is very nice, especially for like if you have a project with a specific workflow and you know you need certain tools, or there's just, you know, you're a specific type of GIS user where, you know, half this stuff you don't need to see, you know, so you can remove tabs altogether. Or if you think it would be great if these certain tools or whatnot were all on a particular tab, or, you know, it just allows a lot more control and customize, the ability to customize as well. So I'd encourage you all to spend some time playing with customizing the ribbon. You can do some really neat things, and yeah. So those are kind of the configuration pieces I'd like to show you. So all right, let's head back on into our project here. So the first thing I want to check is to see if I'm signed into a portal right now. And so just kind of a housekeeping piece. You know, you hear Arcgis Online and you hear portal, and people compare Arcgis Online to a portal and vice versa. Well, in fact, Arcgis Online is a portal, but it's a portal that lives on Esri's infrastructure. So in this case, on an Amazon Web Service in the cloud. So, and then if you were to have Portal in your organization, Portal is the Portal enterprise that it lives on your infrastructure at your organization. So they act very similarly. One is in the cloud, one is on your own infrastructure. So in Arcgis Pro, you will not see Arcgis Online referenced anymore or anywhere. They'll just refer to it as Portal. So just in case you're wondering why we're tossing around the word portal here. So all right, so as I mentioned before, you can see that I'm not signed in to a portal. So I can simply just click sign in here, or I can change which portal I'm signed into. So if I go back up here to projects and portals, great. You can see I have several different portals that I can pick from, and those are just different clients or what have you. But today we'll be signing into the Visual ND portal, which is State of North Dakota's Arcgis Online instance. So I'm gonna sign in. Bear with me here. All right, we're good to go. We're signed in to a portal, and our active portal is now the Visual ND, portal. So now let's get going and let's access some data from Arcgis Online. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a map to our project here. So I'm just going to, you can click up here and select a new map, new scene, new base map, but I just want a map, so I'm just going to click new map. And remember that this map is just going to be added to our project that lives in our home folder. Now, great, we have, as you can see, the default extent and base map is State of North Dakota, which is great. It makes sense because we're signed in to the State of North Dakota's portal. So now let's go ahead and let's add some data from a portal. In this case, it'll be Visual ND. And so a lot of things with Arcgis Pro, there's like 2 or 3 ways you can access the same thing, and you kind of just pick whichever you're most comfortable with or you think is fastest, or wherever your cursor happens to be at that time, I guess. So one way you can access it or access data from your portal or Arcgis Online is simply if you go to I've got quite a few tabs open here, but if you go to the project pane, and then where it says project, you can see your maps and things like that. But we're interested in grabbing data from our portal. So, and if you click on portal, this will show you all of the content that is in your active portal. So as you saw, I have several different portals associated with me in this project. I'm only going to see things that are in Visual ND portal here. So to start off, let's go ahead and let's add just an ND's count and a North Dakota counties layer that I have on Visual ND. So like I mentioned before, a couple ways you can do it. You can drag and drop into your map, or you could potentially just right click and say add to current map. So something that you'll notice, I added the data, but of course it didn't turn on because in the settings I told it not to automatically turn on. So if I turn it on, it should look familiar. Very nice. You see the state of North Dakota. And so it's really as easy as that. You just make sure you're signed into the portal that you want to pull data from, and then you go to your project and then select portal, and then you can view all your folders and content from there. Also, you can view content that's in groups in your organization. You can see, you can search all portal, which allows you to search everybody's content in your portal as long as it's made available to you. And then additionally, you can search the Living Atlas, which is really handy. And the Living Atlas is just a bunch of data sets curated by Esri. So that's a really nice place to grab data from as well. Something else that I think a lot of you will find interesting is, so you saw me add a web layer or a feature service, right? A hosted feature service. In Arcgis Pro, we don't use the term feature service. We use web layer, which is kind of a new thing. And then something that is new to ArcGIS Pro is you have the ability to add web maps to your project. And so previously, you know, in ArcMap, you could do something kind of similar, but you'd have to download like a map package from Arcgis Online, or simply just add the data from a path to your map. But this allows you to open a web map and view the symbology as it is, and you have the connections right to the data, things like that. So the way you do that is you select the map you're interested in. And so in this case, I'm going to select this population density map, and then you just right-click on it, and then click Add and Open. And so what this is going to do is if we look here at our project again, and we look at our maps, we'll see that we have that map that we originally created here with just the state of North Dakota, or the counties in it. But we also have this, we have that web map in there, and then you'll see a little link, and that kind of indicates to us that that's a web map. So one thing to note here is, so we have the data. This is great. We have it symbolized exactly the way it was in Arcgis Online and things like that. And I believe I'm not sure if the pop-up configuration is carried over as well. But one thing to consider, or to, I guess, realize about this is we have all the data, we have the map, we have it symbolized the way it was in Arcgis Online, but any changes we make in here will not be reflected in Arcgis Online. So changing the symbology, for instance, here, and if we were to save it, it'll be maintained here in this map, but the original web map in Arcgis Online will remain the same. And you know, that's kind of nice, especially if you had a map in Arcgis Online that you needed to, it looked great in Arcgis Online, but you needed to print it with a nice legend, or you wanted to tweak it in a couple ways so that you could use the map in a report, something like that. This is a very nice option for that. And it's great because essentially you're creating just another map in your project, and then it's automatically grabbing all of those data connections for you and putting it in there. So, and then one other thing that you can do is, so let's say you've styled your map and things like that, but let's say, or you didn't style the map, you just wanted the map the way it was, you were just in a layout or working on a custom legend or something, but then somebody updates the web map on Arcgis Online, and you want your map to reflect those changes, what you have to do then is right-click on here, and then if you go down here and click on Sync, that will essentially blow away any changes you've made to the map and overwrite them with the map as it exists in Arcgis Online. So something to think about. A very nice fun capability that we have now. So, all right. So now we're going to go into briefly discussing how to create and publish web layers. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and close this map, and I'm also going to go ahead and add a new map here. So, all right, so just let's add some data to our map. So I've got some data here just on my desktop that we can grab. Let's do, for those of you who attended our first webinar, we had kind of a silly data set that we used, and it was a North Dakota UFO sightings data set. So I'm going to add that to our map, and I'm gonna publish this to ArcGIS Online. I think this would be kind of a fun layer to share with my friends. So it's pretty easy. It's not, the workflow isn't dissimilar in very many ways from ArcMap. I guess the major difference is the visual and user experience. It's a lot handier and more concise. So there's, like I mentioned before, there's two ways to do everything. I guess the easy way to share or create a web layer is to just simply right-click on the layer you want to publish as a web layer, and then just go down here and click Share as a web layer. Otherwise, what you can do is with that layer selected still or highlighted still, you go up here to share on the ribbon, and then you just say web layer, and then you can either publish the web layer or overwrite a web layer. And so at this point, publishing a web layer means that we're going to publish it to our portal. So in this case, we'll be publishing to Arcgis Online. So that means it'll be a hosted feature service. But if you were to be publishing this to portal, an instance of portal that you might have on your own infrastructure, you'd be hosting essentially a feature service served off your own infrastructure. So kind of an important distinction to make. So we're just going to click Publish Web Layer. Something else I should point out here as well, you have the ability to author web maps in Arcgis Pro as well, and a very similar workflow to what you're about to see here. You would just click Share as Web Map up here in the Share tab. So, if you look at this, our configuration window here is very similar to what we were used to in ArcMap. So we'll call this ND UFO sightings. So I'm not going to go all the way through this, but just to kind of give you an idea. So you have a couple options here. We're going to post it as features, tiles, or vector tiles. We're just going to do features. Again, of course, you have a summary required, and then tags, and then our sharing options right now by default. It's going to be shared. It's going to be private in terms of sharing. You can share with specific groups as before. And then if you go over here to configuration, you can obviously configure some other options as well. So like I mentioned before, not too dissimilar, and in some ways streamlined a bit as well. But notice, this is a very easy thing that we can jump between. So one other thing I wanted to show you here is previously, let me pull up ArcMap here. Previously, we kind of had this wizard for publishing our feature services, and this worked really well and whatnot. But there's a lot of jumping around in this wizard here, and then also when you click Analyze to analyze your data, analyze the feature service to look for warnings and errors, that's in a whole different I guess pane down here, and you're kind of all over the place with this. And additionally, when you click Publish, this window, like with all things in ArcMap, or all processing in ArcMap, essentially, that window is kind of it's stuck. You can't do anything until that's done, I guess. Whereas in Arcgis Pro, let me just quickly analyze here. Everything, all of our warnings and errors are all kind of in that one window, and everything's in one place, and it seems to make a lot more sense from a usability standpoint. So one thing kind of a fun trick that we've kind of figured out over time here is that this area here, I think this is kind of a common error that people experience when they're trying to publish feature services, or in this case, web layers, and it's the classic layer does not have a feature template set. And so that's kind of an annoying thing, but there's a really easy workaround with that. So in ArcMap, if you encounter that issue, all you need to do is start an editing session with that particular layer. And I think even if you just open the Create, you might have to click on or open the Create Features tab to get it to go away. But if you were to reanalyze, that'll go away. And in ArcMap, it's not any different really. So if you just go up here to the ribbon and click Edit, and then if you were to click Create, and then if we go here to Analyze again, look at that, it's gone. So very, very quick and easy. So that's sharing a web layer. Very, 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 like I mentioned before, a very similar workflow to before, but the user experience is much nicer, I think. So All right, moving right along. Let's talk about some 3D data. All right, so in ArcMap, or I'm sorry, in ArcGIS Pro, we view 3D data in what are referred to as scenes. So scenes. So we have, like I mentioned before, when we add a map, we can add a new map, we can add a scene or a base map. So one of the really nice things that we can do in ArcGIS Pro is we can take a 2D map, which we've been working with already, and convert it to a 3D map, which I think is the preferred workflow, because then you can have you could have potentially a map set up with all the data in it that you want already. So we're gonna go ahead and kind of try out that workflow here. But what I'm gonna add another data set here. So I'm gonna add a North Dakota counties layer here quick, and we'll pop that below. So and then and I like symbolizing in my 2D map a little bit better as well. So I'm gonna make this hollow, and I'm gonna add some black outlines for our county boundaries here. All right, great. So we've got our UFO data, and then we've got our county boundaries. So now what we can do is we're working in map 1 here. So if we go to our project, you can right click on that map and then just click convert to scene. So it'll take this map and all the data in it and convert it to a scene for us. All right. And so what it did is it took our layers that we had, and it created 3D layers out of them. And so if you wanted to, and so that allows us to do some things like extrude features and whatnot, and we'll kind of go into that in a minute here. But if you wanted to, if like you know that your county's layer is just going to be used for reference, you can drag that down to our 2D layers. So you know, we have our scene, but it's not particularly impressive at the moment. So we need to do a couple things here really quick. So something to note about scenes is they use 2 different types of models. There's a global model and then a local model. The global model is used to show, and I guess, large expanses of the Earth where seeing the curvature of the Earth might be important. So let's say you were in making a map of like the flight path of an airliner that crashed or something. Something kind of neat like that. Or conversely, if you were going to use the local model would lend itself, I would say, probably to anything smaller, lends itself well to anything closer to the Earth than like a county. I would say the local model is probably your way to go. So, but by default, it defaults to global, and then you can also actually change the default in your options here, like most things you can customize in ArcGIS Pro. So we're going to stick with global for now because North Dakota is a pretty big area, and so but you'll notice that we're not really seeing much, and that's not helpful. So by default, our layers have a visible scale range assigned to them. So if we click on one of these layers here, we have these contextual tabs that pop up. So we're going to go to the Appearance tab, and sure enough, look at that, we have a visible scale range assigned. So I'm going to turn that off, so now we can see our points. And then I'm also going to turn off the visible scale range on our counties. So as we zoom in here, things get a little clearer. Then also, we can change our base map. I'm going to change this to imagery, see if that's a little better. So that's a little better, but so anyway, it typically this data renders a lot better if you view it from an angle as opposed to straight down. It doesn't look great. So let's do something 3D with this. So there's a couple things we can do. We have our UFO settings layer. And let's adjust the symbology here. So the symbol, it's just showing, they're kind of showing up like placards, if you will. So let's change this to a 3D symbol. So let's scroll down here, and let's do a sphere. All right, and then properties, let's make it size, let's make them pretty big, 10. All right. So now we have spheres, and so they're kind of weirdly buried in the ground, which is kind of interesting. So let's do something with this. So if you right-click on your layer and you go to Properties, if you go to Elevation here, you can essentially float your sphere, your data points above the ground. So typically, you know, if you had a 3D data set, you could use like the Z values to do this, or I think an easier option, and it's a little more flexible, is just to use a field. And so let's do let's do a relative height to the ground, and then we'll use a field, and we'll say I made a field here that is the altitude in which the UFO was sighted. And so let's go in here and let's see what we get. Now, kind of fun, if you look around, we can see our spheres floating in space where apparently these people spotted the UFOs. It's kind of fun. You can click on them and query them from space. Kind of fun. Additionally, something else we could do, I'm going to turn off our UFO sightings. We can take our counties layer and drag it up here into 3D layers, and then we're going to change the symbol. We're going to symbolize by the population. Let's do population density here, and we'll do. I'm sorry. Let's do graduated colors, or unclassified colors. There we go. All right, and we're going to use our population density from 2010, and we'll do a better color ramp. We'll do something like this. Very cool. All right, so now, oh, something else I should show you is you can link your maps together, and what that allows you to do is when you pan and zoom in one, you're panning and zooming in the other. So what we do is we go to View, and then we link views, and so you can have them just be centered together, or you can have them center and scale together. So I'm going to have them center and scale together. And then the other thing I'm going to do is, because everything in Arcgis Pro is dockable, I'm going to grab this map, and I'm just going to put it right here next to our other one. So as I move in this one, you can see how things change a bit in here. So, all right, so the other thing I was going to do is going back to our 3D layer. I'm going to dock this up here again, just for, oops, so it's a little easier visually at the moment. I'm going to do what's called extruding. So if you again go up to Appearance, and then there's this Extrusion menu option. There's several different extruding options. And so basically what that means is that it pulls, or the data rises from the ground. And so we're going to determine how high it rises using the population density, and we'll say, so let's say it'll rise in meters. We should be able to see that here. And then also let's make sure that this is on the ground. Elevation, absolute height. Let's put it on the ground. There we go. So now we should be able to see something here. So maybe population density is a small number, so maybe we need to extrude it a little bit more with, there we go. That's what I was looking for. All right, so that's kind of fun, right? We have population density indicated by color, our color ramp here, and then additionally, visually, we can see, which counties have higher population density based on how high they've been extruded from the ground. So I know we flew through this section. It could be a whole course in itself, but just to kind of let you know what's possible, and you don't need 3D specific data sets. These were all just 2D data sets that I made 3D using different attributes, and so yeah, I'd encourage you to play with that. You can do some really neat things. One of the last couple things I want to talk about here, we're utilizing tables with Arcgis Pro. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close our 3D. I'm going to switch back to our map here. I'm going to add some data, and I created a table here. So it's actually a feature class that I've truncated all the features out of because I wanted to show you that. So just like before in ArcMap, you right-click and click Attribute Table, open the Attribute Table. But you'll notice that, like most things in Arcgis Pro, we have some contextual tabs that open. So because this is a feature class, we have kind of appearance and those contextual tabs we have with layers. We also have a contextual tab for the table, and this will appear with all of your layers, of course. And we have all sorts of different options up here. So, so as you can see, I don't have any features. One of the nice things in ArcMap, to add a new row in a table or add a feature, you just simply click right where it said add a new feature. You can type in what you want, and when you're done, you just go up to edit and click. You would click save edits if you made any changes. One of the really important things I wanted to show you is how you work with fields now. So previously, you would, if you wanted to add fields or whatnot, you would do the right click on the field, or I'm sorry, you go up here and say add new field or whatnot. But one of the neat things Arcgis Pro allows you to do is there's this field tab that you can open, and you can see all of your tabs and all of your fields and information about it all in its own tab. And what's really neat is in this tab, if it's really easy to add new fields all at once. You can add a whole bunch of fields, whereas before you had to add them one by one and type in the information. So let's say you needed 5 new fields. You could just bam, 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 add them really quickly, name them, change the field type, assign a domain if you wanted to, things like that. And then if you don't have any data in your table, one of the nice things is you can go ahead and you can change the field types, which you could do in in ArcMap through catalog. But here it's all in one place and very easy. And you can actually, in lots of cases, you can rearrange fields in your tables. But again, you can't have data in your table. But I want to show you that. That's pretty neat. And so once you've made some changes here to your table, you want to go up here and click save, and it'll add those fields for you. So cancel that really quickly. All right, and we're running towards the end here. So one thing I wanted to mention to folks especially folks who use Model Builder. We still have Model Builder in Arcgis Pro. The way you access it is right up here in the ribbon. You go to the Analysis tab on the ribbon, and then you have the Model Builder button here. So something to note is when you click Model Builder, it will create a new model for you. And I bet you can guess where it's going to put it. It's going to put it in our default toolbox. So we have a model here now. So you can kind of follow the traditional workflow of right-clicking on your toolbox and saying new model like before, or you saw it's just a really quick step here to add it. And things are rearranged a little bit, but building a model is essentially the same as it was before. So the one thing I really wanted to point out to folks is the ability to export a model to Python was discontinued in Arcgis Pro after version 1.1. They were kind of soliciting feedback and finding that that functionality wasn't working the way people had hoped, and apparently they thought it was best to just get rid of it. And as of right now, there are no plans to bring that functionality back in. So unfortunately, your scripts are going to have to your Python scripts are going to have to start as Python scripts. Or if you still have ArcMap, you could still do it that way, I guess. But something to consider. Your models still work fine. I found some creative folks online who found ways to run your models via a Python script, but it's the code that you're running to run the model isn't particularly Pythonic, and you can't really edit the model via Python. So something to be aware of. I know a lot of people are bummed about that, but it's just how it is at the moment. But yeah, I guess that's all I really want to show you now for the demo. So let's in the few minutes we have remaining, let's go ahead and field some questions. So Steph, have we've been getting any good questions in?
Yes, Sam. We actually just got one in a little bit ago. When you were working on doing some of the symbology updates, we had a question come in. Didn't the symbology used to update as you click the different options, or is that a choice that you made in turning off an option somewhere? And I think that question came in when you were doing just not necessarily the color ramp symbology, but just the simple symbology for each county.
Yeah, that's a very good question. So I don't have a straight answer for you, but what I will tell you is some things will automatically change. Like for instance, where you saw when I changed the symbology type from like single symbol to unique symbols, that automatically changes by itself. If we add all our values here, what am I doing? Oops, of course I'm looking at my one that doesn't have any data in it. So if we change to so when we change the symbology altogether, no, we don't have to click apply. But if we were to change one specific thing, we have to click apply. So kind of I don't really have a great answer for that. So you're right, that is a good observation. Some things happen automatically and some things don't. But no, yeah. So I don't know if that's something that you can automatically set. I might have to get back to you on that one. But yeah, display. Yeah, interesting. That's a very good question. All right. Any other questions?
Yeah, we just had one come in. In Pro, do we need Portal? I'm assuming it's referring to Portal for ArcGIS, or can I just host a feature to an internal ArcGIS server?
So Stephanie, please stop me if I'm saying something wrong here. But unfortunately, you do not have the ability to publish services to a server at this point. Unless you have Portal installed on your machine. So publishing services from Arc Pro they have to be hosted services on a AGO account right now. So.
Yep, and just to confirm with that, also as long as the ArcGIS server is federated with Portal for ArcGIS, as long as they're connected together, then yes, you can still host the feature to an internal ArcGIS server. Right.
Yeah. So, folks, if you haven't noticed, we're kind of at a tipping point with GIS software at this moment. It's kind of painful for folks who have kind of invested in that traditional GIS system. But the things coming down the pipeline, the performance seems a lot better, and there's a lot of cool things you can do. It's just that making that transition is going to be kind of a pain in the butt. So. Any other questions?
No, it looks like those are all the questions we have. Just because we have just a couple minutes here, I know there is one question that I've been asked before that I just kind of want to address, just in case any of you are wondering it, but just haven't asked. Is 3D Analyst extension required for ArcGIS Pro to work with 3D maps and layouts? And actually, no, it's not. If you don't have this extension, you can still navigate, create, edit, and share 3D maps. The 3D Analyst extension that you've used previously in ArcMap is only required for performing 3D analysis. So if you want to run geoprocessing tools in the 3D Analyst toolbox, you need the 3D Analyst extension. But other than that, everything that Sam was showing you with scene and everything, that is all just right in ArcGIS Pro. You do not need a 3D Analyst extension.
One of the things you can, I forgot to mention that you can do is, we were able to publish web maps. We can also share our scenes as web scenes to Arcgis Online, and that's done very easily. You just go up to the Share tab and click Share as Web Scene, and so this interface should look very familiar to folks. So yeah, so something to point out.
Definitely another good point. So those were all just very great questions. So thank you guys for reaching out with that. If you do have any other additional questions, please feel free to send them to us. I know here Sam's going to bring up the PowerPoint slides, which will also be providing a link to North Dakota ITD to disperse out to those of you in North Dakota. This webinar was recorded, so you'll be able to access all of these resources. And then on the last slide in here, we do have our contact information as well. So please feel free to reach out to us. But on behalf of Sam and myself, we'd like to thank you for attending our webinar, and we hope you feel more comfortable making the switch from ArcMap to ArcGIS Pro, and that you're more confident in taking on all that ArcGIS Pro has to offer. So like I said, please feel free to contact us if you have any other additional questions regarding ArcGIS Pro. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you guys.